or association plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on MITV, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
And thanks for joining Corporate Governance Platform. The program is proudly brought to you by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals, and is beaming live from MITV Lagos. My name is Tunde Odeyemi. A couple of weeks ago, we started a conversation on key issues on effective board and shareholders meetings. Due to popular demand and the importance of corporate meetings, we are going to continue with that conversation in today's episode. And to lead in that conversation is no other person but a very distinguished governance professional, Mr. UCHE. Mr. UCHE holds a master's degree in law from University of Lagos. He's also an alumnus of the Lagos Business School, having attended the senior management program in 2001. UCHE is an associate of the Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, a certified corporate governance practitioner, a member of the Nigerian Bar Association and International Bar Association. He has extensive training and facilitation experience locally and internationally, and until recently, UCHE was the company secretary and legal director of GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Nigerian PLC, GSK Nigeria. UCHE is currently the lead consultant at Arete Dunamis Corporate Consulting, a consulting firm that focuses on corporate governance, advisory services, secretarial services, restructuring, and recoveries. He has traveled widely for trainings and seminars in countries including Ghana, South Africa, Kenya, Turkey, Malaysia, Colombia, the United States, and the United Kingdom. UCHE, very glad to have you on the Corporate Governance Platform.
Thank you very much today. It's my pleasure.
Okay. We started the conversation some times ago on effective board and shareholders meetings. We had to bring you back so that we can continue that conversation due to popular demand and the importance of meetings. Now, we have discussed some things in the previous time, but I would like to take our viewers back to this by distinguishing the difference between board meetings and shareholders meeting.
Thank you very much, Tunde. I think it's a very important distinction that needs to be made. Okay. Because this goes to the very root of the organic theory of corporate governance that talks about the two major decision-making bodies for an organization, a company, that is the board of directors and the shareholders in general meetings. As the name goes, the board meeting is a meeting of the board itself.
Okay.
So for you to be present in that meeting, you must be a director.
Okay.
And there are a lot of provisions to guide rails to ensure that non-directors are not allowed at the meeting except they are expressly invited by the board for a specific purpose, which must be minuted or noted. On the other hand, you have the shareholders meeting, which is their meetings where the law sets out what they should do there. For example, if you're a public company, within 6 months of your being set up, you must hold a statutory meeting. Then the one that is commonly well known is the annual general meeting,
okay,
which holds in a cycle of 15 months. So if one holds today, then in 15 months' time, the second will hold. Then there are instances where between those annual general meetings, things do spring up that require that the board itself cannot deal with. It requires the approval and the constitutional approval of the shareholders. Then you can have an emergency general meeting. Then the fourth being class meeting. Maybe if there are classes of shares in that company, preferred shares, debenture stock, they could hold meetings. So generally, these are the meetings. Now, at such meetings, the shareholders are the ones that take the decision. Okay. Motions are moved, and then they are put to the meeting. They can be by ordinary resolution, which is simple majority, or special resolution, which is by two-third majority. So those two arms are distinct and separate. However, note that it is the chairman of the board that is also the chairman at such general meetings. So those are the distinctions.
Okay, all these meetings that you have mentioned, they all sum together to be corporate meetings.
Yes, they are.
Now, what are the common issues that are crucial to these corporate meetings?
If you look at the board itself, from both the NCCG code, the charter, as well as the memo, the board is charged with the responsibility of charting the strategic direction of the business. So in board meetings, you will expect to see strategies being discussed, the managing director presenting his report, they'll look at the performance of the company, they'll look at the risk, there are some things that are specially reserved for the board, those things. So what company secretaries normally do is that they'll prepare what we call a director's schedule of meetings.
Okay.
So which they will plan like a year ahead. So in each of those meetings, they will state things that need to be discussed that are in line and consistent with the responsibility of the directors. For shareholders meeting, the most common being the annual general meeting, CAMA itself has provided for things that need to be discussed there. For example, approval of dividend, appointment of directors, issues around fixing the remuneration of the auditors, electing shareholders representative for the audit committee, for public companies. Those are some of the things that are exclusively for the shareholders to decide.
Okay, all these are already taken care of by CAMA.
By CAMA, yes.
Okay, before I go into my next questions, I would like to invite our viewers to be part of this show by asking questions or making comments. You can send your question or comments to 080-2323-1287. I take the number again. Questions or comments to 080 via text message 080-2323-1287. Please only text message, no phone calls. 080-2323-1287. And we are discussing effective board and shareholders meetings. Okay, you have talked about some of the crucial things that is common to all these corporate meetings. Now, what is the role of the company secretary in all these corporate meetings?
A very important question, because as they used to say, you cannot click your hands without the thumb. The company secretary or corporate secretary is actually the thumb that enables the clicking of the meeting, because both by statutes, for example, section 335 of CAMA, reposes on the company secretary the role of attending the meetings, making sure that the meetings are properly organized, more importantly, and that they are carried out in compliance with all the rules and regulations. So that clearly shows, and the same is more in detail replicated in the NCCG code. And if you look at most charters for board, you also see that those things are detailed for the company secretary. So he has to ensure that the notice is agreed with the stakeholders, subject to chairman's approval. He has to ensure that they are sent on time. And mind you, when you hold meetings, there are some mandatory statutory requirements. For example, if you fail to send notice to a director, which is the role of the company secretary, it actually invalidates the entire meeting. So
the entire meeting?
The entire meeting, yes. A director who is entitled to receive notice of a meeting and did not receive it.
Even if it's a single director?
A single director, it invalidates the entire meeting. Wow. So that's very important. Then, of course, the agenda is agreed, the minutes of the last meeting, and then ensure he collates all the board papers and send them. The code provides that notice must go 14 days before the meeting and all the board papers 7 days before the meeting, so that the directors can have sufficient time to look at those things and make meaningful contribution. The company secretary's role is very critical, and he has to be up and doing. He has to understand that if he doesn't deliver, then the meeting itself will not be able to.
So very vital role of the, performed by the company secretary. Is actually, the company secretary is actually the organizers of all these.
He is the organizer. Okay. He is the coordinator. He is the one, in fact, the code, the NCCG codes, spoke about ensuring that compliance. So every applicable rules and law, for example, if he's going to hold a meeting that requires CAC approval, he needs to get it. For example, if it's a public company and that meeting is going to, for example, approve dividend, a board meeting, he has to realize that the NGS, which is the stock exchange, has requirements that you must send to them at least 15 clear days before the meeting, because they need to monitor to ensure there are no insiders dealing. So the company secretary is
okay. I would like to go a little bit into annual general meeting.
Thank you very much.
And this particular, let me call it clause or item, prosy.
Yes.
What is prosy in annual general meeting?
Okay. Both under the 1990 CAMA, section 230, and then the current CAMA 2020, which is, I think, 254.
Okay.
It says that a shareholder can appoint another person who is not necessarily a shareholder in that company,
okay,
to attend and vote on his behalf in an annual general meeting.
Okay.
Now, you must submit the proxy form, which must take a particular, the law sets out the format and the template within 48 hours. But I need to point out that something interesting happened. You remember that COVID landed in Nigeria, I think in February 2020. Yes, I think February 27 was the first index case that happened.
Okay.
Then companies, then of course the government had to shut down the country to avoid, you know, people catching COVID by being, even today, we are sitting this way.
What is generally known as lockdown.
Lockdown. But it sort of also locked down corporate activities like approval of dividend, which the directors cannot do on their own. It has to be shareholders. So based on engagement with the CAC, and we must call out the CAC for his foresight and his, you know, commitment to ease of doing business. They now say to companies and issue the guidelines saying you can now hold meetings where the number is within the prescribed number, 25, you remember. You can't have a meeting with more than 25 people, whereby shareholders will nominate proxies that shareholders can delegate to hold the meetings on their behalf. That was the origin of proxy AGMs in Nigeria. It's novel. It has no, I mean, if you look at it, it was a child of necessity, but it created a lot of goodwill because it was win-win for everybody. So what then happened was that companies started to, and I can say to you that even up to today, incidentally, proxy AGM is going on, although for a lot of people, we know next year, probably companies will return to normal meeting. But proxy AGM, so people nominate shareholders. All the other shareholders will then say, I want so and so among your list to vote in this regard. And then they will gather at a venue, no more than 25, hold a meeting, and then that meeting will be televised or YouTube live so the others can watch. Of course, CAC need to approve it. There are other conditions that they have set out. But the key thing was that the companies were able to move forward, improve liquidity, help the economy.
Okay,
and, yes.
Still on annual general meeting,
yes,
but away from proxy.
Okay.
Can an annual general meeting be held anywhere the company desires to hold it?
The current law is that you can only, except for what they call small companies, that's companies with less than 120 million in terms of his balance sheet, or companies with one single shareholder, which is an innovation on that CAMA. Otherwise, the law is that annual general meetings have to be held in Nigeria.
Okay.
However, the law then says that for private companies, they can hold that meeting electronically, meaning virtually. So the implication, but in compliance with their article. So if your article say you can hold your meeting anywhere, you can do so virtually, because that is what the law says. But generally, on a face-to-face meeting, it has to be in Nigeria. That's the current state of the law.
Okay, what are the roles of shareholders associations and stock analysts in driving governance in meetings?
They have played very massive roles. I must say, very massive roles. From the days of Tunde Asalu to current manifestations, you have had significant contribution by shareholders associations and analysts in holding boards and companies to task to perform and fulfill the requirements of the law. And I want to use the opportunity to mention that gentlemen like Nona Awo, like Sir Sonimosu, Mr. Duro Toye, Duro Jaye, and Nze Okezie, they had pushed companies to sit up. In fact, when you go for your meetings and you see some of them, you know that you are going to, it's not going to be a roller coaster. They will ask questions, they will insist on compliance, they will challenge anything they are not happy with, and they have really improved governance in Nigeria. We need to acknowledge the role they have played. Although some of them, we must confess, had also created challenges. But I think on a holistic view, that Shareholder Association has helped to deepen the governance practice in Nigeria by holding boards and companies accountable to fulfill their obligation. You know, there are some things that employees cannot say or do. But these shareholders, they have courage, they will challenge you, and the regulator is there. So you're not going to say, shut up. The CAC is there, SEC is there, Stock Exchange is there, and they are listening to you. And the law, even today, mandates the chairman to ensure that their questions are answered. And if you look at the code, there are critical stakeholders that need to be carried on board as the company deploys its strategies. Thank you.
Okay, earlier you mentioned CAMA 2020.
Yes, please.
If CAMA is to be amended,
yes, please,
what recommendations would you suggest to be included in it as it relates to corporate meetings?
Yeah, a very, very important question, and it will surprise you to know that it took, the last law was 1990, it was only amended in 2020, which is like 30 years, which is absolutely unacceptable. As it relates to meetings, clearly I believe that that concession granted to private companies to hold electronic meetings, there is nothing that prevents it being extended to public companies. And I think that CAMA also have to recognize the role that technology is playing in doing business by providing robust provisions or regulations that will help companies to adopt and adapt technology in doing business, so that when you're holding your meetings, you're able to do much more using technology, overcoming a lot of human factor and limitations, including storage, although the Evidence Act has been amended now to recognize electronic, but more need to be done. And we thought that COVID was a good opportunity for some of these legislation to be passed. It did not happen, but we believe that it is still not too late. And stakeholders are engaging with the House of Assembly, the National Assembly, to improve the legal requirement, especially for holding meetings, recording evidence, and what have you. Thank you.
Okay, you talked about the importance of company secretary the other time.
Yes.
Now, what will you suggest to company secretaries on how to cope with chairman of the board who tends to, impose his or her views on the other members during corporate meetings?
Thank you. Which is why in corporate governance, we should not just wake up and appoint anybody as the chairman.
Okay.
Because the chairman is primus inter pares, is first among equals. He should not see himself as God, dealing out, because of the nature of our presidential system. People tend to arrogate power. No. First of all, induction is very important. Even determining the profile of who to be chosen. His, personal, his characteristics, his capability. Then when he's appointed, we should not just assume that he knows what to do. Fortunately, our institute, ICSAN, also run trainings that helps to prepare people to perform that role. Okay. So those chairmen should attend ongoing trainings. The company secretary should be prudent and wise. You are not in an ego competition, not at all. Your goal is to ensure that the company operates in compliance with the laws of the land. Because if you don't do so, if you don't, hold the chairman without dragging him, by supporting him and pointing out, sir, this is what we should do. You sit by his right side. It's not just for nothing. You should be able to whisper to him when you see that things are going out of this thing. Don't try to raise your hand and say, I don't agree with what the chairman says. That's not the role of company secretary. Your role is to advise, to point out. Sometimes you have to write. And I want to say from practice, what used to happen is that seasoned company secretaries usually have a session with the chairman before the meeting. And I want to recognize the role of Chief Oshunkeye, a doyen of corporate governance, in instituting that. So, like if the meeting is going to be in 4 days' time, he will require for a meeting. So that we will go through
with the company
secretary. You will go through, and sometimes with the managing director, so that there is a synergy, there is understanding. The issues are identified, and what needs to be done, which are the decisions that need to be taken, is streamlined, and there is no ego bashing or seeking for supremacy. So the chairman understands his role, which is to ensure that the meeting goes on, he's impartial, he's not putting his finger inside, and if he's interested in any of the business, as do happen if he's a founder, he must be properly disclosed, and he must step out from those conversations so that there can be free, unfettered conversation. So the company secretary has a lot to do to guide the chairman and ensure that ego and domineering spirit or tendencies does not becloud the meeting.
Okay, the job of company secretary requires accurate minutes writing and keeping of records.
That's right.
Do you think that charter secretaryship profession adequately prepares company secretary with the role of perfectly writing minutes and keeping of records?
I totally agree with you, Tunde, for the reasons that I'm an example, so I can say. So sometimes you're a lawyer, and then you are appointed a company secretary.
Okay.
You assume you know it. It's not correct. Training, the minutiae is what makes a difference. Understanding where the comma is to be, understanding how the minute is to be written are very, very critical. Okay. So the ICSAN fortunately provides those trainings. Okay. And today I think even the fast track process is on. So I want to urge company secretaries who are yet to go through this training to avail themselves of the opportunity. There is so much to gain. And then they also have a lot of publications that helps to teach. So you can learn, you attend their seminars, you can register with them to go through the training to become a chartered secretary. You can also acquire the books. They have company secretaryship books that helps you to, experts do write those books, and they give you a lot of guidance so that nothing is left to chance. Because remember, it's not about you. It's about doing the right thing for the company. And as they said, it's always the right time to do the right thing.
There's always the right time to do the right thing.
Yes.
Does ICSAN have a guidance paper for board meetings, or propose to have guidance paper for board meetings?
Yes, certainly. We have already some. Like I mentioned, we have the company secretarial series. The one has a volume on minutes writing, another one on board evaluation. And then there are also other guidances that have been issued to support company secretaries in how they carry out their functions.
So company secretary can lay their hands on those guidance papers and do their job perfectly?
They are very available. In fact, they go to ICSAN's site, icsan.org, www.icsan.org. They will be able to find as much materials as possible, certainly.
Okay, let me ask this. What advice do you have for corporate organizations and entities out there on the imperative of laying the culture of good and effective corporate meetings? I want you to speak to corporate organizations out there generally.
I want to say to them that it is fundamental, because ultimately, if the foundation be destroyed, there's nothing you can do. See, the challenge about governance is that that gap, once it is created, it becomes very difficult to address, because as the years go by. So it's important to ensure that companies organize themselves in such a way that they recognize corporate activities, especially meetings, ensure that meetings are properly convened. Don't mix shareholders meeting with board meeting. You know, it doesn't mean you can't hold both on the same day, but there must be a distinction between a board meeting and a shareholders meeting. Appoint competent individuals to be company secretaries. Empower them, give them the tools to be able to do the work. Ensure that the minutes are properly written. They should not try after the meeting to influence what is written there. Call the company and say, look, I don't want this thing in the minute, or change it. No, that is unethical. So they need to realize that doing the right thing pays in the long run, because ultimately it is the foundation of compliance that enables company to exist. Even when the current managers and directors are gone, the company will still continue to exist. Why? Because it is founded on a solid foundation. You can go back 50 years ago and see the minutes of the meeting, what was discussed. For example, when I joined the last company I worked, I used to take some pride in looking at the board minutes. And some of them dates back to 1980. Even before I went to university. So it's quite interesting to see those records. And you learn a lot. You understand how the thinking of the organization, why they took certain decisions, where they are.
Those meetings,
the minutes are there. Yes.
Wow. I have a question from somebody.
Yes, please.
This is from one Mr. Dayo Adeusi.
Yes, please.
He said, thank you, Mr. Guest. Effective board meeting is good. Does it have any bearings on the performance of the company?
Certainly it does. Absolutely. Thank you very much for that question. It does. For example, one of the essence of board meetings is performance monitoring. Okay. Usually at the beginning of the year, the board will hold what you call a strategic session. They will set what the milestones that need to be achieved. How do you ensure that they are achieved? You then, at each board meeting, there will be report on those milestones. They look at the risk. Is our risk appetite right for the kind of business we are doing? Our capital, is this sufficient to do the work? In fact, research has shown that effective board meetings is directly correlated to good performance of the company. Because what is not supervised, you can never measure it. So that supervision, that ensuring that without taking over the role of management, the board ensures that management is keeping to the terms of the engagement, so that when the AGM comes, they will not be biting their lips and talking stories. And if they need to alert shareholders of challenges, they will do so by either issuing notice to shareholders or even calling extraordinary general meeting to address issues. So clearly, sir, to your question, it is very important. There is a correlation between good and effective board meetings and performance of a company. Thank you.
Thank you very much, UCHE. There is a correlation between effective board meetings and performance of the company. And on that note, we'll wrap it up on today's episode of Corporate Governance Platform. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Tunde.
And for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And for our viewers, we want to thank you for being part of the show. Dayo, thank you for that question. It actually made us to wrap it up on a very nice way. We invite you to join us again next week, same station, same time. I remain your host, Tunde Odeyemi. My producer has been Adeboye Galabiran, and the technical director, Abibade Jobi. Keep spreading the gospel of corporate governance, and bye for now.
Thank you.
Do you have continuity or association plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on MITV, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN.
And educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.